Phil writes, do you think the ANC will change the president's prerogative when coming to things like reshuffling, etc., to enforce full consultation before he or she does so? Clearly?
I think there's a lot of energy and a lot of discussion right now around discussing the powers of the president, both within the ANC and in the other parties and in civil society and in the intellectual community generally. People basically saying that when we adopted this constitution that gave the president such wide powers, we believed would always be run by Madibas. And we did not countenance the fact that we would one day have a Thabo Mbeki, for instance, who was quite an authoritarian person. Yeah, that one day we would have somebody as disastrous as Jacob Zuma running the country and who would abuse those powers. So people have started to talk about that. The former Deputy Chief Justice actually said so. I mean, and talking about the fact that we allow the president to unilaterally, singularly appoint the head of the National Prosecuting Authority, to appoint the head of the police, and many other very powerful positions. So, but the cabinet is always the prerogative of the president. I mean, like in any country, it's not a South African uniqueness that is the case. But in many developed democracies, you generally have counterbalancing forces. The president will take into account, let's say in the UK, for instance, the prime minister will take into account the feelings of the parliamentary caucus of the majority party. In the US, what you have a president who takes into account, who basically you have a process of hearings, basically kind of like on the Capitol. And in other countries, I mean, even in less developed countries on our continent, presidents generally take into account what the party is feeling. In South Africa, that used to be the case. The president used to consult widely in his party within the alliance, and eventually would then sit with the top six, and that would be a decision. It still is a decision, but it's a decision that he has canvassed, and particularly with the top officials of the ANC. But now we've come to a position where you have a president who's actually, as many people have said, who's gone rogue, who's just doing his own thing, who goes to consult the Guptas instead of his own party. I think there's going to be a big rethink about that, about how to actually govern any future president what sort of powers that president. It may not be what sort of powers that president actually has. Not only because, not only within the constitutional framework, but also within the party, to compel a future president, whether it's he or she, to actually do a lot more consultation. Because yes, it's this one that we don't trust now, but in future it could be another type of president who actually just wants to exercise their power authoritatively.
Rapule?
I think so. There's always the letter, and then there's the spirit. If you look at the ANC as a political party, in 2007 at the Polokwane conference, one of the big concerns there was that Thabo Mbeki had not been consultative in his style of leadership. So they actually did change the provisions of the ANC constitution to make it compulsory for the president to consult with the rest of the leadership before he makes big decisions, before he appoints cabinet, and all of that. And I think he did so maybe immediately thereafter in 2009, and maybe for a few years thereafter. Then later, as has just been said, he just decided to go rogue, and that's they've actually not enforced this thing, because that's in fact one big question that South Africans have been asking, why Jacob Zuma has been allowed to get away with so much that he has, despite what the constitution said, despite all the changes that they made to make sure that they did not have a repeat of a Thabo Mbeki. But however, let's hope that the past 23 years or so has actually been a good experience for whoever is coming in, whether it be Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, a Cyril, or even a president coming from another party, if that happens, just to learn from how badly the others have misused their powers and how that interferes with cohesion and trust in the office, and that they would have learned the lessons and things would change. But ultimately, I think, like I said, it would be also about the spirit. So it would be about the individual who would be appointed to decide what the attitude would be.